All right, welcome back everyone to Bad MMA Math. Apologies for the lateness of this one. It's been a little bit of a wild week. It's not like me to not react to a card as soon as it's happened, and hopefully this will be the last time. Now, this card was a mixed bag, and I do actually have a lot to say about it. Oddly, it did turn out to be one of my most profitable cards in a while, and I'll get to how that happened. Like and subscribe, as always, all that good stuff. I'll have a video every day for the rest of this week to make up for the short hiatus. All right, fight number one. Malcolm P. Head Gordon. My friend, it is the end of the road for you. Completely moronic performance. It feels like some of these scrubs have never trained a day in their life sometimes. Malcolm Gordon, you're not a grappler. What were you doing? We seem to be back here every week talking about retardation. Jimmy Flick's only chance of beating him was latching up a sub, and Gordon just willingly played with him down there. The ease in which he took the man's back was genuinely shocking to me. I did get this wrong. I'm not making excuses, but this was an inexplicable move to me. I was going to say that he needs to get cut, but apparently he announced this week that he's retiring. Probably a good move. Anyway, fortunately I didn't bet on this. I mean, why would I? Good win for Flick. You know, he got his back, choked him out. Good win. All right, fight number two. This was an absolute thrashing. Jasmine Jasudavicius is actually quite good. Well, Priscilla's quite bad as well. But, you know, we'll try and have a little bit of balance here. Priscilla was supposed to be the bigger, stronger girl in there, but nope. She got absolutely ragdolled. I went for the over, though, which just about cashed in. But I did say in the build-up that Jasmine would be hard to justify as a minus 400 favorite. And that was incorrect. Jasmine ragdolled her and whooped her ass on the ground. As good as she looked, though, it is important to remember that Priscilla is quite terrible. Jasmine looked absolutely massive in there, beat her up, pushed for the finish. Well done for you. All right, fight number three. Now, I talked myself out of this one a little bit. In the build-up, I mentioned that Patterson debuting at welterweight was going to offer up a lot of unknowns. And this was the perfect example of where weight cutting can be really bad for certain fighters. Now, previously, Patterson was fighting at lightweight, and he's 6'2". So for some of you that are unaware of this, sometimes a lot of fighters drain weight to try and get matched up with smaller dudes who they can hopefully bully. The unfortunate downside to that is obviously weight cutting reduces oxygen to the brain, and what can end up happening is you end up getting smashed really easily. And Patterson is an example of where that's gone horribly wrong in the past. He simply looked a lot better at welterweight, way more natural size for him. Actually, if he probably, worked on his nutrition and bulked up a little bit, he could probably be a middleweight fighter as well. This began continued the really hard streak for Canadian males on the cards. He just bullied Lainesse, choked his ass out, made it look easy. And it was actually really good to see a Brit slap up a Canadian. Just saying. All right, fight number 4. Viana is as hot as she is bad at fighting. She simply has nothing to offer off her back, and the blueprint is just there, like it's been there for a while. She's got no real power. Her stand-up's actually okay and looked okay at times, but she was fighting Robertson, who is one of the worst strikers in any women's division, and she just stuck to the game plan, took her down, Viana was doing a really good impression of Humpty Dumpty in this one. I don't really know what's next for Viana. Actually, I'm joking. It's OnlyFans. We know it's OnlyFans. This was an embarrassing loss. Robertson is very good on the ground, but she shouldn't be dominating anybody like she just did. I did pick her, though. Good win. Viana is done out here. Right, fight number 5. A lot of people called this a robbery. I think that's a bit too far. I thought Tavaras did get away with one a little bit here. It was an absolute war. Arguably the fight of the night for me. They both beat the absolute piss out of each other. I thought that Sidey was landing with more ferocity, but that Tavaras was kind of landing more cleanly and looked more slick. For me, the clearest round was probably round 2, where I thought Sidey was landing massive bombs and really controlling the action, whereas round 1 and round 3 were a little bit more back and forth, with Tavaras showing the quicker, sharper, cleaner strikes, as I said. I think the issue is that Sidey can look a little bit wild in there. You know, he kind of swings pretty wildly, and that can sometimes look not great for the judges. Kind of reminds me a little bit of how Ian Kutalaba is sometimes. Might be a strange comparison, but he just reminds me of that kind of wild, you know, crazy style. Ultimately, for him to lose a close decision in this one, I feel a little bad for the guy, because as controversial as it was the way he beat Tavaras the first time, he probably felt really aggrieved to have to get back in there with the same guy he just beat again. It was not Canada's night and not his night on this occasion. Well, it wasn't for the male fighters anyway. I thought Sidey won rounds 2 and 3, but what can you do? It was a razor close fight. Could have gone either way. All right, fight number 6. I was quite lucky to get this right. I went for the over 2.5, but I did almost pick Jourdain. And the reason why I didn't is because I just couldn't take him at minus 300 odds against somebody with the weird physical advantages that somebody like Woodson has. He's got some really like weird looking, long-limbed alien type creature body. I can't really describe it. Jourdain looked like a small child in there, which really surprised me, especially compared to Woodson. Woodson basically won this fight by simply using his range well and stuffing takedowns really well. Like, his ability to balance was really impressive. Again, I think that comes down to like the really weird body type he has. Jourdain is very skilled, but this was just a very bad matchup for him. Nothing he uses effectively was working here, and he paid for it. Now, the worst part about this was when the scorecards were read out. Bruce Buffer, I don't know, kind of said the name weird. I mean, I heard Woodson, and thought, you know, yeah, of course he's won. But then Jourdain started celebrating like he'd been gifted the decision of the century. The ref is also to blame for raising his hand as well. He must have heard it incorrectly. Really cringe to then be told by Lardy Boy Cormier, like, nah, bro, you lost. Get out of the cage. And Jesus, that just made the whole situation that much more embarrassing and painful. He needs to go down a weight class, I think. Woodson is good. Like I said, the way he stuffed those takedowns and was kind of hopping on that leg. Very impressive escapes. Woodson's good. He's going to be hard to beat in this class with all the advantages that he has physically. All right, fight 7. Brad Katona lost the fight. And this was honestly probably the most surprising outcomes on the card for me. Garrett Armfield is not a bad fighter, but I just thought Katona was going to be too well-rounded for him. He looked sluggish in there and just a step slower. The best thing he did was land a few takedowns, which amounted to nothing. And I think this was the problem here. He's kind of used to getting people down, having a bit of control. But I think the fact that Armfield was able to get up so quickly was causing Katona to drain, and he just looked slow. It's kind of like he was throwing strikes at 0.5 speed. if that makes sense. Katona's a weird one. Like, he's had good wins against good competition, including Bryce Mitchell, as I mentioned in the build-up. But for some reason, when he gets onto the roster proper, he starts to bottle it and finds himself out as quickly as he gets back in. What stood out for him on the night, though, was how one-dimensional he was in his striking. There's no diversity to it, and it was very clear that Garrett had him read really quickly. I knew I'd picked wrong about a minute in. I know Katona usually goes into fights, but I knew after a minute, yeah, this guy's not winning this one. Good win for Armfield, though. All right, onto the main card. This is where the rage started for me. I don't care what anyone says. This was a brutal robbery. Go back to my breakdown on this, and I actually called it 100% correctly, barring the robbery. Now, I did get the over 2.5, so technically I won the pick. However, this is a damage-based sport. And how many times do we have to say this? The first round was close, but I thought Allen landed much harder than Evloev, and I don't know what to say to make that clearer. Watch it yourself and tell me different if you can. Evloev did land a takedown to throw Allen around a little, which may have swayed the judges a little, but that does not outscore getting fucking clocked throughout the rounds. Allen got up as I said he would. I knew he would. I said he might get taken down, but I said he'd get back up, and that proved to be the case. Now, you can give Evloev round 2. I thought that Allen outlanded him and hit him harder, but there was a moment in this one where Allen looked a little bit wobbled, so I can take that. Round 3 though, Allen was beating the absolute shit out of Evloev and hits him with a knee that had me off my seat. I genuinely thought the finishing sequence was coming, and I thought he was about to finish. Then Goddard stops it for what he thought was an illegal knee. Now, I don't know the intricacies of the rules exactly, but I know enough to know that that wasn't illegal. He did have a hand down, but it doesn't work like that. Allen then loses the chance to finish, setting up the robbery on the scorecards. Goddard is a sanctimonious arsehole anyway, and I don't care that he's English. I don't have to like everyone from here. He's just as responsible for robbing Allen as the judges were in this one. Now we get to see Evloev get closer to a title, and Allen's career is basically fucked. He's going to need at least 3 more high-level wins to get a sniff again. It's just ridiculous. Evloev gets another win by doing absolutely nothing good in terms of what the scoring criteria are. It makes me sick, man. Evloev won, whatever. All right, fight 9. This was kind of exactly what I expected from both these guys. You know, they're pretty tough. They're both hard to finish. And this one sent me on the way to loading up a parlay, which I'll show you later, that made me a very decent amount of money on this card. So I'm grateful for that, I guess. Now, this was pretty much back and forth, with Curtis outlanding Marc-Andre in at least 2 of the 3 rounds. So for me, the decision was fine. You can kind of give him a case for winning the first round as well. So, you know, it is what it is. I've got no issues with the decision whatsoever, or the 30-27 scorecard. My issue here is with the fight is that Chris Curtis is getting harder and harder to like as a personality, which is strange for me to say because I watch him on the podcast of Strickland quite often, and he actually seems like quite a down-to-earth, decent individual. But he might end up winning an award at the end of this year for being the most complaining, whiny vagina in the UFC. Now, Curtis does have a very particular style where he likes his opponents to kind of march forward and stay in kind of a phone booth range of him so that he can use his boxing range and variety to the body and head effectively. But when it doesn't go his way and his opponents start to move laterally or move backwards, he throws a fucking hissy fit in the middle of the octagon. Now, fortunately for him, Marc-Andre was willing to engage with this somewhat and kind of ended up losing because of it. It's just, it ruined the whole fight. It ruined the whole win for me because You can't expect everyone's going to fight in your realm in the pocket every time, you idiot. Of course they're going to look for your weaknesses and look to exploit them. He is great in that phone booth, I'll give him that, and this was a good win. Alright, fight number 10, and this was the feature fight of the night. I kind of feel a little bit bad for this one. Not as bad as most, because they did try to give Mallot a layup, but I also called that this would happen. I told everyone not to bet on Mike Mallot in this one. Not at what was, I think it was minus 300 at the time of close-in. Now, I will say this. He was beating Magney up like he should have been minus 1,000 for about 12 and a half minutes. The problem I saw in this one is that Magney isn't easy to finish. Like, he's not a world beater, don't get me wrong, but he is experienced and can drag you into his way of doing things. And I knew that Mallot would face adversity at some point. What surprised me, though, is that when he did face that moment, he completely crumbled. He turtle shelled down there. He had no get up game whatsoever. Magney probably couldn't believe his luck when it got to there and he saw how easy it was. Mallot just shelled up. Wasn't a good look at all. Like I said, it was supposed to be a gift for the Canadian, and I didn't realize he's 32 as well, so he's got a really hard road ahead. Bad loss for him, and a really soy way to lose. Alright, fight 11. So this was for the bantamweight belt. Now, I don't really care about this one, and it's not because that both these women are not decent fighters, but whenever there's a default title fight, they always kind of rub me up the wrong way. Anyway, the major theme of my breakdown was kind of a simple one. I felt that Mayra Bueno Silva, without her 5-round experience and without facing good competition, was crazy as a minus 400 betting favorite. And on the opposite side, Pennington, all right, she's had a lot of losses in her career, but she is dog tough and she's fought way better people than Mayra's fought. And that ultimately proved to be the story of the fight. Now, I was not sure that Raquel would win, and I didn't say she would because, you know, she's Raquel fucking Pennington. But she handled the situation well. Her striking was good. When she was taken down, she was able to reverse position and to get out of submission attempts. So that was really good. She got the win. That's great. But what really bothers me about this whole situation is that Juliana Pena, as we all knew, was going to start a media tour immediately to whine for a title fight, and is probably going to get it. And I think she might beat Raquel. I know she's a terrible fighter, but I don't know. I just have a weird feeling that she's going to get it done, and that would just be a really freakish nightmare situation for me. And what bothered me about watching Raquel holding the belt is that was all I could think about. I'm like, Pena's going to be next, and she's probably going to beat her. Maybe it's because I felt that Mayra would have been a better matchup against Pena, or I don't know. Anyway, it might be a default title win, but well done to her. She's a champ, that's all that matters. But please, for the love of God, don't lose to Pena. Please do it for the MMA community. I couldn't take that. Just do what Amanda Nunes did to her in the second round and just beat the piss out of her. It would make us all so happy. All right, finally onto the main event. So before I get into what the whole thing is with the whole robbery and who should have won nonsense, I felt that this fight was really, really sloppy as fuck. I know it was a painful war to get through, but both men did try to play their game plans, and I guess it was kind of fascinating to see from that perspective. My prediction that Izzy might end up with the belt is looking prophetically frightening, but I'm going to get to that. I'm going to keep this simple in how I scored it. I thought Strickland won rounds 1 and 5, and I thought that Dricus won rounds 2, 3, and 4. Now, there have 2, 3, and 4, yeah. Yeah, that was a retarded moment. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Strickland's jabs not being respected as scoring shots, but I don't really feel like that was the issue here and hasn't been the issue in many of his fights. I thought the issue was simple in that when Dricus did land, especially with the kicks, he was landing really hard and thudding, and he was showing more diversity and variety in there. Strickland was basically popping out that jab, which is what he does, and that was it. And while it was doing damage, I can see why the judges favoured what Dricus was showing. You know, he was switching stances, he was dictating where things went in the cage, he was using a variety of limbs and positions to attack. The striking numbers are close, but I will say this to people who don't understand how vital takedowns are in this particular situation. While Dricus didn't have much control time, they were changing the pace of the fight and helped to unsettle Sean and pull him out of rhythm. In a fight that close where striking is so close, those moments matter in rounds, and Dricus edged it by doing that at vital moments in those 3 rounds. Would I have been furious if Sean Strickland had won? Absolutely not. I loved that base motherfucker, and he really had a strong case to have his hand raised that night. A split decision was obviously coming, and we all knew it. When I was watching, I was thinking, this isn't going unanimous for anyone. I did mention earlier that I had Dricus edging it because of those reasons, and I've watched the fight back a few times now, and it hasn't changed my opinion in the slightest. Now the thing is, the fair thing that should happen is that fight should be run back. But as I said earlier, or alluded to earlier, despite being 1 in 3, we know they're going to give it to Izzy. And I have a small issue with how effective Dricus might be against Israel Adesanya. Now, if you can wrestle game him, that would be great. But my worry is that for him, his forward pressing kind of like wild style is kind of tailor-made for somebody like Izzy, who just kind of picks shots and uses his range and, you know, waits for people to make a mistake. Whereas Strickland doesn't do that kind of thing. He's very defensively responsible. So we could end up having the belt pass between the 3 the way things are going. It's going to be like a hot potato this year. Anyway, this was a fun scrap. Not the most technical for me, but the right guy won just by the skin of his African arse. So, here's how we did on the card. Now, the odd thing was I ended up finishing 8 and 6, which would usually be a betting disaster for me. It should be fucking 9 and 5 with the add-on robbery, but it is what it is. Tavaras was a razor-thin one. Patterson was a tricky one at a new weight class, so I can take those losses all day. Same with the flick, you know, that was the flick fight. That was a battle of the shit, so that could have gone either way. Fortunately, as you will see this time, the way I put my picks out in the parlay fortunately worked out, and I came out with a nice ticket here, so I'll take it. I've had so many where I've gone 10 and 2 on a card. If you look back at last year, I did it so many times, or even 11 and 1, and if for some reason I do a parlay or I do 2 parlays, and guess where the 2 losses or the 1 loss would land? I feel like I deserve this. Anyway, I'll catch you all in a bit. Have a great one. The next card is terrible, but whatever. Like and subscribe. For some reason, some of my subscribers have said that they're not getting notified. So for those people, if you could just uncheck the bell and then recheck it, that would be really helpful. YouTube are moving scummy, I guess, again, whatever. Anyway, peace, guys. In a bit, I promise I will not be as late on a card again. Or I hope I won't. Take it easy.